Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Entrepreneur Encounters. In today's episode, I interview Dave Molenda, the founder of Positive Polarity, on his entrepreneurial journey. I think you'll see Dave has a lot of amazing things going on his path. So let's listen to his story.
I owned a business for most of my life. I just know that I wanted to be in charge of my own destiny, so to speak. And, working for the man, we'll call it, really didn't work. I started in the mid 80s. And by the early 90s, I was owning my own business. And I just had this calling in my life to be able to do that on my own. So that's what I followed and been doing it ever since.
Well, how many of us can relate to Dave here? That calling, that purpose. How many of us have been impacted by that? If that sounds like you are exactly the type of person we want to work with at Milwaukee Small Business Coach. We believe that purpose aligns and those skill sets align. And when you build the whole package around it, you can really thrive, grow, and have the success that you're ultimately hoping to achieve to get to goals that you need to. Well, let's listen to Dave more as he talks about his process of getting started along his entrepreneurial journey.
So mid 80s, I joined a company and selling construction products. And by the early 90s, I wanted to venture off into a different area within that same world. So I had a business partner at the time and we started going down that road. And when I started in 1991, we had literally $0 in this division. There were no sales coming in and it was just me. And then when I sold it in 2000, we ended up with about 10 million in annual sales and had 22 people on the team. So, it was definitely a work in progress. And every podcast that I'm on and every podcast guest that I have, I try and ask what's the secret, magic bullet. And I've yet to find one. It'd be awesome if we did, but nothing replaces hard work and nothing replaces planning and nothing really replaces being in the right place at the right time.
Did you hear that? Nothing replaces planning, hard work, and being in the right place at the right time. We do need to be looking ahead. We can't be stuck planning. We can't have analysis paralysis, but we ought to be looking ahead. And why? Because things change so often in the small business world. But if we're planning ahead, we have some ideas. We know, hey, maybe if this happens, we're going to go this direction. I'm going to give this a try, but not just like go out and do it. We're going to figure out like how we're going to scope it down, put some parameters around it. How long are we going to try it? Are we going to try it for a week, a month, whatever? We need to plan. Then we got to put in the work. We figured out what we want to do. Now we actually have to go get it done. We have to handle the bumps. We have to handle the obstacles. That's a place where at Milwaukee Small Business Coach, we come alongside people. There are always obstacles, but there's more than one path forward. But that hard work and that perseverance is really key. And then being at the right place in the right time. Some people are going to call that luck, chance, fortune, or fate. I don't believe in any of those. I think there's a plan. Ultimately, there's a divine plan. And I want to say you have to be present to win. I think that's what it means, being at the right place at the right time. How do you do it? Some of it's getting out there and networking. It's getting out and connecting. It's showing up. It's talking to people. It's understanding what's available. And it's using our ears to listen. And when you hear problems that aren't being solved and you have the skill set and the alignment with your business and your purpose to be able to address that, that's oftentimes what it means to be at the right place in the right time. But sometimes we feel like I'm just going to sit at home and I'm just going to wait and it's going to show up. That doesn't work. You have to be out there. You have to be connecting. You have to be building relationships. You have to be asking what's going on, what's on the ground. And you don't know what shows up. And it's really difficult for people to look back. But most of the successful entrepreneurial journeys that we've tracked on this show and that I've tracked in my career, and then I've heard from others when they tell their story, there is a right place and the right time because they were out at the place. So Dave goes on to show how his personality impacts his business, which is essential for many of us. So let's listen to what Dave shares here.
I'm my personality. I get bored easy. I'm always looking for the next latest and greatest. I have those that are ingrained in my personalities. I wake up thinking, what can I do different today? So some people have that, some people don't. I just had this thought that I could do it better. And we constantly evolved and we constantly created. And we actually started doing things that weren't done in our industry and we perfected it. We started it. We revolutionized an industry. Some things just came natural to me. And I just really wanted to make sure that I used that God-given talent that I had.
So, what's your God given talent? What's your skill, craft, or trade that you're absolutely amazing at that the world needs to see come out? We did not get into business here in order to do sales meetings and do accounting and do some of these other things, unless that's your business, helping people with sales and helping people with accounting and helping people do the administrative. All of us have a skill, craft, or trade that's amazing. And you've got to tap into what your God given talent is. Ultimately, that's where your secret sauce is going to show up. The greatest gift you can give the world is yourself. That's what a wise person once said. You are uniquely you. There may be other people who maybe make a similar product or service, but when you put yourself into it and you arrange it around your set of experiences, your personality, how you were created to be, your uniqueness, all of a sudden that becomes unique because guess what? You have to know, like, and trust someone in order to get to that buying principle. And when you're putting your experience and your uniqueness in there, that's really going to transform and make a huge difference. That's going to make you better when you show up truly as yourself. So Dave's going to go on to share the problem that his company solved. And spoiler alert, there is no magic bullet. He's got to put in that hard work and understand and listen. And let's find out what it took him to get there.
So for us specifically, our product that we were involved with was a product that we would sell but not install. And so we were identifying that there were a lot of problems with this particular product. So the simple solution was, well, why don't we just install it? Seemed really simple at the time. Obviously, there's a ton to it. There were a bunch of logistics, but we were trying to fix a problem. And in fixing that problem, Brent, we were able to not only fix it, but we were able to be successful and make money while we were fixing it. So it was a two-pronged approach. Number one, we reduced the amount of problems we had with it, and we made money along the way. And so it was really a win-win. And the customer really loved having it professionally installed rather than something that was installed by somebody that wasn't a professional. So it hit success. And then once that happened, a bunch of people got excited about it. We actually had people come to us and say, well, we don't buy these products from you, but would you install these products that we buy from somebody else? Because we heard so many great things about it, which is a huge honor. But at the end of the day, we're like, yeah, no, this is really reserved for our customers. And so it really set us apart. And I think if you're listening and you're an entrepreneur business owner and you can't come up with some real solid reasons why you are good and nobody else is doing what you're doing. I always talk about Midwest Express, which was a fantastic airline. And probably about 20 minutes before landing, you'd be sitting there minding your own business. And all of a sudden boy, I smell something. It smells like a chocolate chip cookie. And sure enough, they're making chocolate chip cookies on the flight. So you get 2 chocolate chip cookies for landing. And so I always ask people that I talk to, what's your cookie? What are you doing that nobody else is doing? And if you can't identify 2 things, 3 things, 1 thing, if you can't identify something, you're going to have a really hard time identifying that in front of a prospect when a prospect says, why should I buy from you? Why are you better than my current vendor, my current supplier?
So, what's your cookie? I mean, right on, Dave. We have to figure out how to set ourselves apart and be unique. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about our value proposition, our unique selling proposition. What makes you unique? What are the 1, 2, or 3 things that set you apart from everyone else doing this? Spend some time, understand it. This is a place where we're working time and time and again in Milwaukee Small Business Coach with our clients is how do you understand your ideal client profile? And importantly, what's that unique value proposition you're bringing to them? You have to figure that out. One thing I love about Dave in his story, he said, we figured out how to solve problems for our customers and make some money too. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing in business. We're solving problems for our customers and making money along the way. When we have our mindset oriented that way, it's going to help. And the power to get people to select you to solve that problem instead of all the other alternatives that are out there to solve that problem lies in that unique value proposition. So spend some time and think about it. What's your answer to that question? What's your cookie? Now, Dave's going to go on to talk about how he launched his current business, Positive Polarity. Let's listen to his story.
So you have to kind of go back to 2008 and business just stopped. For us, building permits went down almost 90%. And so we could have easily have just closed down. And I thought to myself, if you're able to keep your customers in business, they will then in turn keep you in business. So our customer was home builders, remodelers, architects, just more in the construction industry, which they were all really good at building a solid house. They were really great at their craft, whatever their craft was, but they struggled with some things. So in 2008, we started to offer these weekly trainings for these people. So fast forward that tape 4 years, 2012, we get through that debacle. We grew our business by 47% in that time. And I realized that I had such a huge passion to train and to educate. And so that's where I found myself in that fork in the road where I could either keep doing what I've been doing for the last 28 years, or I could jump into what was really a newfound passion for me. And that's what I did.
Dave's story may resonate with you because it may be your story too. He was on a path. He was identifying people who are amazing at their skill, craft, or trade, but he identified some places that they were having gaps. And he started providing support to solve the problems. He identified problems as an opportunity and moved into that. And as it continued to grow, as they moved through this difficult period in the industry where he was serving, suddenly he figured out, wait a second, maybe my core product or service isn't the thing I used to do, but it's this other piece that has developed around it and has really provided a lot of power and energy around that. I want to encourage you to take a look at that. You may be working with your skill, craft, or trade in an area that's close to where you need to be, but perhaps there's a little opportunity. There's a space that you're not getting the airtime and not giving the airtime to it that you need in order to fully develop that. So I want you to take a look at that. Maybe you're dabbling already in your current business model because that was true for Dave and he was able to change and grow and move into that. So I went on to ask Dave how he gets referrals and how he was able to move and understand who's the next person he's going to be able to sell to. Let's hear what he has to say because it is absolute gold.
I think what's interesting is if I don't necessarily have anything for you, but I may know somebody and we say, hey, if you know anybody that could use sales training, Brent, let me know. And you're like, okay, yeah, sure. Thanks, man. And then Brent walks along and he just goes back to his normal day. Well, if I change that up ever so slightly, a little course correction, and I say, hey, Brent, who do you know that could use sales training right now? And then I just sit there and shut my mouth and just wait for him to answer.
Who do you know that can use my services? And then go silent. 3 seconds, 8 seconds. Some of the surveys show that people will not allow dead air to go on, meaning that like silence is uncomfortable and people will come up with an answer. 8 seconds seems to be about the longest that people are comfortable with that silence. And did you catch that little distinction? Instead of, if you know someone who can use my services, let me know. That's just a statement to the air. It doesn't actually even require an answer. But when you turn it into a question, who do you know that can use my services right now or that needs my services right now? And then wait for an answer. That's golden. That little shift. A lot of times when we're on these journeys, we're just looking for a little tweak, a little course correction. We're not necessarily doing things wrong. We're just missing a little bit of nuance to make it that much better. So that's something I want you to implement. Rehearse it, practice it right now, 10 times. Delete the if you know someone, but who do you know right now who needs my product or service? Beautiful. That's amazing, Dave. Thank you. Well, I can't do this on my own. Chris Crean wrote the music for both our intro and outro. My amazing wife, Kate, does all the editing to make these shows happen. If you like what you've heard here today, please like it, comment, and share with anyone else and subscribe to our channels. So again, thank you for joining me on this episode of Entrepreneur Encounters. I'm Brent Halfwasson, Milwaukee Small Business Coach, and I want to invite Chris to take us out.
Ready to take